let's try and get the ID of all the software modules which have db2 in the name. So I could do the /object type, open square bracket, at name, and then I can put a wildcard search. Name is like db2, and % as a wildcard, and I'll press or enter in close square bracket. Oops, I need to close that. Quote, and every time you press return, that executes the query. Now this is executing the query against the TPM database. IDs are generally required when you're doing workflow development and you're calling workflows from within workflows. Let's get the names. So here we've got a number of products which have db2 in the name. Let's be a bit more specific now. I want db2 for Linux. So in fact we've got two modules defined with db2 for Linux in the name. And let's get the IDs of those. And if you know what the name of the product is, you can replace the like with the equals. So now I've got the object ID of the db2 for Linux software module. What I'm going to show you is how to run a or how to define a query to bring back the capabilities that have been defined on this software product. Now for you to do that, you've got to navigate this file and understand the actual relationship between a software module, a capability, and a requirement. And this will come with time and experience. You have to sit down and look at this file. So this is the definitive place to look at to understand the various object relationships. So I know the software module is related to the capability, is related to an object called capability. And if I press return, I'll see the IDs of those capability objects. Let's display the names of those capabilities. I assumed that there's a name attribute against the capability attribute, but there's not. So that's why I see this red. So let's go back into here. We have software module is related to a capability, so we can see the capability there. I'll just highlight it. Let's look at the definition of the capability object. Okay, the definition of the capability object is shown here. A capability has a name ID and a value. So let's just try that. Name ID. That gives us an ID of an object. I wonder which object. We'll come back to that. Let's look at the value. Now, the values are db2 udb and the number 8. Let's go back into the interface. db2 udb and number 8. That's half the information. We also want to find out the names of the capabilities. Now the names of the capabilities, to get that, we'll have to use an object relationship. And looking at capability, there is no capability name object. There's in fact a requirement name. And remember I mentioned capabilities are really exposed as requirements once the software is installed. So there's a relationship between the software module and the capability object and the requirement name object. So let's do /capability requirement name, and the requirement name object has brought back the IDs 1523, which are stored in the name ID attributes of the capability objects. So now we're in the right object. Let's pull back the values. Let's check if there is a value attribute against requirement name. So we'll go to DCM object name equals requirement name. And there is a name ID and there's a value attribute and also a description. So let's pull back the value attribute. So here we can see name, version. These are the names of those attributes. Name and version, name and version. So now you can write a query in a workflow which pulls out the values of capabilities and the names of all those capabilities. So this query view is a very useful feature where we can start to interrogate the DCM data model. However, to use this tool, you really need to navigate this file and go through and find out which object is related to which object. Now that can be a cumbersome process. If you like VI, then you'll probably find this quite an easy task. You might even enjoy it, going through and using VI macros and lots of VI searchers to find objects with a certain name. There is an easier way, however. There's a tool I've developed here, which I've called the TPM DCM Object Viewer. I'm going to show you how that works. It's based on a predictive text search, so I can type in an object type here. As I start to type in, this is running a query against our TPM definitions to find out all the objects which have server in the name. And here, there's quite a few. Let's click on object type. And here, if we wanted to query this object type, the start of the query would look like this. The server has 16 attributes defined against it in the database. And here we have 41 relationships. What this really means is the server object has a relationship to 41 other objects. So given a server, we can find out which interface cards are defined on that server. And when you click the object, you'll see the query started to change, and now the interface card has specific attributes, 10 of them, and 11 relationships. So given the interface card, we can pull out the interface card type. Okay, an interface card type has no specific attributes defined against it. Let's get all the DCM objects. Here we've got 419. Let's look at all the objects which have software in the name. As we start typing in software product has been deprecated now, so I'm going to use software module. Now click software module, and the software module has a relationship to capability. We've seen him before. In capability, if I click that, I'm starting to drill down and navigate this hierarchy. Capability also has a requirement name. Interesting. So we can then copy and paste this into our TPM apde to help us build in the query. So this DCM object viewer, it's giving us information about the available types of objects in a, I'd say, a more intuitive way. And here, if you want to work with a boot server, now we have a boot server here. Which attributes are defined on there? 10 of them. And how is that boot server related to anything? Or is it related to anything? Yes, it is. A few more. I think you get the message. A customer has a relationship to an application, and an application has a service level agreement. It also can be broken down into its application tiers. The front end, the application logic, the middleware, and the back end, for example. And those application tiers are also referred to as clusters. And the cluster also has a relationship to an application and software resource, and so on. So here, navigating the TPM hierarchy is done through this file, or alternatively, this tool can be used here. So I think that's pretty much all I want to say in this video cast about the TPM value proposition, automation packages, workflows, and navigating the most crucial component from a development point of view, this data center model. And one needs to understand the various data types of objects and their attributes and their relationships to other objects to successfully write workflows. That's in my opinion, of course. It would be nice to take your questions. Can't take your questions now because this is a recorded video cast. So thank you for taking the time out to view this. If you do have questions or any comments, please feel free to send them to videocast@tswifts.com.